We continue now at the top of Daf Pei Aleph Amud Aleph and Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 81a. And the previous Amud Reb Chia taught a brisa which said if a carbon toda gets mixed up with its tmura, with its attempted substitute, and then one of the animals dies, and we don't know which one of the animals dies, so then the surviving animal, there is no solution. And the Gemara explained what exactly are we going to do in this situation. If we bring bread together with the animal, so then maybe it's the substitute animal by the tmura. There is no accompanying bread by the tmura of a carbon toda. And if we don't bring the bread, so maybe it's the original toda, so we really have no solution over here. And on the previous summit, Levi said to Rebbe, why don't we do the following? Why don't we just bring an animal and bring bread together with it, bring another animal with bread together with it, and then we make the following stipulation. We say if the surviving animal is the tmura, so then the new animal and the bread that we're bringing is going to be a carbon toda with its lechem. And if the one that survived is the actual toda, so this bread will be connected to that carbon toda, and then this other animal that we're bringing, it's going to be what's called mos or toda. It's going to be a residual carbon toda. And the Gemara then continued that Rebbe replied to Levi, and he said, it seems to me that you have no brain in your head to make such a suggestion. As the Gemara now continues and says, are we allowed to initially designate animals to be residual offerings? Certainly we may not do that, and so therefore this solution is not going to be effective. Rashi explains, can you ever separate, designate a carbon with the intention that it should be a residual carbon? That does not make sense. And the Gemara now continues with a fourth suggested stipulation. Yosef Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marasa Kami de Rav Nachman. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marasa was sitting before Rav Nachman. Yosef v'kamar, and he was sitting, and he was saying as follows. He had the following solution. V'laisi behema v'lechem v'lema. Why doesn't the owner of the surviving animal, he should bring another animal with bread, and he could say the following. Ihach dekaima tmuri. If the one that survived is the tmura, so then hatoda v'halachma. So then this is the carbon toda. The new animal that's being brought is the carbon toda, and this is its bread. V'hach dekaima toda. Now, if the one that survived is the original toda, so halachma, so this is its bread. V'hata have tamura, and then this other animal that's being brought, let this be the tamura of the carbon toda. The tamura again is essentially an attempted substitute. Somebody says that he wants to substitute one animal for another. The halach is the original remains kadosh, and the second one is also brought as a tamura. So why not simply say, as part of the stipulation, that this animal, this new animal, if need be, it should be a tamura? But the Gemara continues, Amar Lei, he said to him, Rav Nachman said back to Rav Yitzchak, Ani Mari, he said, answer me, my master, Arboyin bekaspe v'kosher. This is a situation of 40 lashes on his shoulders, and you're suggesting it's proper for him to do this. In other words, when somebody designates a tamura, that actually is a violation, and it incurs 40 lashes, it incurs Arboyin malchus, and so therefore that's not really a solution to propose that part of the stipulation is to create a tamura. Rashi explains, Arboim bekaspe v'kosher hu chayiv lilkos arboim al shemer. A person is chayiv, he's liable to 40 lashes when he makes tamura. Kedetanan, that's a mishnah in tamura. Shem heimer mumar v'sofeg es arboim. It says that again, if the person makes tamura, he's going to get lashes. V'yat amar yafresh lechatchila l'shem tamura. And you're suggesting he should designate lechatchila that it should be a tamura. Davar shu aser, that's something that's aser. U'mischayv malchus, it's something that's liable to malchus. And the Gemara continues with a fifth suggestion. Ravila chalash, Ravila was ill. All Lagabe Abaye v'Rabbanan, and Abaye and the Rabbanan, they came to visit him. V'yasvi v'kamrin, they were sitting, and they were saying as follows. Im isa l'd Rabbi Yochanan, if what Rabbi Yochanan said is true. T'yamar, that Rabbi Yochanan said, chutz l'chomas v'azara kadosh. He said that the bread, the toda bread, even if it's outside the wall of the azara at the time that the toda is slaughtered, it is still sanctified. He said as long as it's within the wall of Beis Pagi, the wall of Beis Pagi was the outermost wall of Yerushalayim, as long as it's there within that wall at the time of the Shechita, it is going to be Kadosh. So now we have the following solution. Laisi lechem, he should bring bread. V'los v'chutz l'chomas azar, and he should put the bread outside of the wall of the azara. V'leiman, then he can say, ihach dekaima toda, if the animal that survived is the original toda, so halachma, so this is its bread. V'ilo, and if not, lepuk l'chulin, let it be deconsecrated, it should be chulin. And now we won't run into the problem that we had in the previous summit of chulin ba'azara. It's not chulin ba'azara, because it's outside of the azara. And the Gemara continues that Ravila responds, this is not a good solution, mishum di'ika arba lahanif, because there are 4 loaves that then need to be waived. That's the halacha, that the loaves need to be waived of the carbon tamid. And so, hey chiliavin, now what are we supposed to do in terms of waiving these loaves? Linfinu avroi, if we're going to waive them outside of the azara, lifnei Hashem ksib, but it says it's written in the pasuk lifnei Hashem, before Hashem, so it has to be within the azara. But gavoy, but if it's going to be inside the azara, then we're back to the problem we already mentioned on the previous amud, kama'ayil chulin la'azara, then he's going to be bringing in chulin la'azara. Part of the stipulation is this might be chulin, and hilgach, therefore lo efshar, therefore it is not possible. And the Gemara continues with a 6th suggestion. Maskif lo Rav Shisha b'rei de Ravidi. Rav Shisha, the son of Ravidi, asks the following question: Im isa l'de Chizkiah, if what Chizkiah said is true, D'yamar kidshu arboy mitoch shmonim. Chizkiah said that 40 out of 80, that's 40 out of 80 loaves of the carbon toda are able to be consecrated. That is talking specifically about a situation where a person brings 80 loaves with his carbon toda. He does not specify that only 40 should be consecrated. So the halacha is that 40 of them become consecrated as toda breads. The other 40 are considered to be a guarantee, essentially alternates in the event that the first 40 are lost or disqualified. That's what Chizkiah said. And so if that's true, that kidshu arboim mitoch shmonim, that 40 of the 80 are sanctified, so we have the following solution. Laisi behema, he should bring an animal. V'laisi shmonim bahadon, and then he should bring 80 loaves together with the animal. V'leiman, he should say as follows, just make the following stipulation. Ihachta kaima toda, if the surviving animal was the original carbon toda, so hanami to have a toda, so the second animal will also be a toda. V'hashmonim de tarvayu, and these 80 loaves, 40 will belong to one, 40 to the other. That's going to be the accompanying breads. And ihachta kaima tamurahi, now if the one that survived is a tamura, so it's not supposed to have any breads, so then hatoda v'halachma, then this new animal will be a carbon toda, and these 80 loaves will be the bread accompanying the carbon toda. V'likdashulu arba mitoch shmonim, and then 40 of the 80 will be kaddish. We might not know exactly which 40, but still 40 of the 80 will become kaddish. And the Gemara continues and says that's problematic, mishum dekamemayet ba'achila darboim, because if he does that, he's going to end up minimizing in terms of the eating of the 40. And Rashi Ksaviyat explains, v'liktu shula mem mitoch shmonim, again he'll sanctify 40 out of 80, v'inoch mem, now the other 40, havale mafresh lachrayis, that's just considered being designated as a guarantee in case something happens to the other 40. Tahachi amar Chizkiah le'el, that's what Chizkiah said earlier, lachrayis kamechavin, his intention is for achrayis. V'hamafresh shnei karbonos lachrayis, now if somebody does designate 2 karbonos as a guarantee in case something happens to one of them, shneim kedoshim, so then they're both holy. V'hachanami, so too here, kulu shmonim kachi im hatoda, all 80 will essentially be sanctified with the toda, umem ba'an pei nafshe, and then 40 on its own. Hilkach, therefore, lekal mifrach ma'ayil chulin lazara. Now here you don't have a problem of bringing chulin lazara to kaven de lachrayas kama'ayilu, because if he's bringing them in for the purpose of a guarantee, so tzorech karboninu, that's considered needed for the carbon, v'shaper dummy, and that's fine. V'yafa gav dehein chulin, even though they are chulin, kehil hazakin, like hil hazakin, mevia keshi chulin lazara makachi, he brought it as chulin to the azara and sanctified it, v'somech Allah, and leaned on it, v'shochet, and slaughtered. Aval bahanach de le'el, but in the earlier suggestions, to leka el chada behema, where there's just one animal, v'dil matmuri, and maybe it's the tmura, maybe it doesn't require bread, v'lo chazio lelechem, and it's not even fit for bread, me'ikara chulin la'azara kamayil al chinam, there he's bringing chulin la'azara for no reason. So if it's 40 out of 80, the idea is that the other 40 are considered achrayas, that's not a problem of chulin la'azara. And the Gemara then answered, that's still not a solution, mishum dekamemayit ba'achila, because he's minimizing in terms of their achila. Rashi explains, the achshav hu torim shmona chalos, now he's going to have to take as truma 8 of the chalos. Of the 40 you take 4 chalos and give to the Kohen. Here you have 80, so you're taking 8 chalos. V'shem alav toda, and now maybe it's not really a toda. V'yosan arba taram shalo kedin, and so the 4 that he's taking as truma for the Kohen, it's not really truma. Umemayit ba'achila me arba haruuyos, and the problem is, the 4 that really are fit to be truma, he's minimizing in terms of their consumption. Why? To dilma lo mishtachi kohanim lachlinu, maybe he won't find kohanim to eat them all. V'yasu lidei noser, and then it's going to come to noser, it'll end up being left past the proper time. Al yedei elu shein chulin, because of the ones that were chulin, ve'einon ru'uyos lakan, and they weren't really fit. Umaisi kachim leveis apsul, and that will essentially be bringing kachim leveis apsul to disqualification. Memayit ba'achila, and again, minimizing in the eating simply means memayit es ochlehen zman achilos, and he's going to minimize those who are eating them the time that they're able to eat it. And Rashi Ksav Yad continues, Lishna Achrina Garcina, in a variant text, Mishum Dememayit Ba'achila Da'arba. Again, he's going to minimize in terms of the eating of the four, again referring to these four that were separated as Truma. And we'll take a look at Rashi as well. To Kamemayit Ba'achila Da'arba, he's minimizing the eating of the four. Te'ilu Ba'alma Hecha Deleka El Achad Carbon, in a regular case where there's just one carbon, Iyikdashu Mem Mitoch Shmonim, let's say again 40 of the 80 are sanctified, Ein Necholin LeKohanim El Arba, so then the Kohanim are just going to eat four. The rest are able to be eaten by the bailim. And since there are only four, it's possible to eat them in one day. But here you have a situation where the Kohanim have 8. So now the owners, they can feed that to anybody, so that's not a problem. That's not going to end up being burned. But with regards to the 8 loaves, that belong to the Kohanim, since they're only eaten by their wives and their children and their slaves, the concern is maybe they won't be able to eat all 8 in one day. They'll end up burning the rest. And maybe the other one wasn't a toda, and so you only have really 40 loaves that were sanctified. Only 4 were sanctified. It's going to end up that you ended up being memayit ba'achila de elu dalet of these 4. They weren't all eaten. V'sarav shelo kadin, he's going to end up burning them, and that's not proper. And Rashi continues in Yenacher, another explanation, memayit ba'achila demem, it means he's going to be memayit in the achila of the 40, because dil malo kachi klal, maybe of the 80, maybe only 40 are really kaddish, the other 40 are not. The idach lo have a toda, because the other one is not a toda. V'chi mitosri lamacher, but then when he doesn't complete eating the 80, he's not sure whether all of them are kaddish or not. So saraflu is going to burn them. V'yavra mishum bal tashchis, and that would be a problem of bal tashchis. He's burning these extra loaves for no reason, because really they weren't kadosh, and there was more time to eat them. Kach shamati, Rashi says, that's the explanation that I heard. And the Gemara continues with a 7th suggestion. Amar le Rav Ashi le Rav Kahana. Rav Ashi said to Rav Kahana, Imisa le Rabbi Yochanan, if what Rabbi Yochanan said is true. The Amar that Rabbi Yochanan said, Hifresh chatos muberes, if somebody separates a pregnant animal as a chatos, v'yoled, and it gives birth, Rotza ba mischaper, if he wants, he can use the animal for the kapara, the mother animal. Rotza bevalda mischaper, if he wants, he can use the offspring for his kapara. So then we should have the following solution. Laisi behema muberes, he should bring a pregnant animal. V'yamtin lo tail it and wait until it gives birth. V'laisi shmonim bahada, and then bring 80 loaves with it. V'leiman, he can say the following stipulation. Ihachta kaima tmuri, if the one that survived is a tmura and doesn't require its own loaves, so then hav valda todahi, so then the offspring over here is a toda. V'hashmonim de tarvayu, and the 80 loaves belong to the mother and the offspring. V'ihachta kaima todahi, and if the animal that survived is a toda, so hanami todahi, so this mother animal also is a toda. V'hashmonim de tarvayu, and then the 80 belong to these 2 animals. V'hai lahave moser de toda, and then the offspring, that's considered a moser de toda, that's considered to be a residual toda. And Rashi explains, Rotza ba mischaper, Rotza bevalda mischaper, he's able to choose either the mother animal or the offspring for the kapara. To lo chashav lo kivlad chatos, Rashi explains it's not considered the offspring of a chatos. Hoel v'hifrisha mu'uberis, since at the time of designating it, the animal was already pregnant. If it would be the offspring of a chatos, so then it would be left to die. That's not the case over here. The die to have a his understanding is that he could do a kapara. He could have a kapara with the offspring, and therefore he chooses whichever one he wants. And the same is true by carbon toda. Todos, you can make them both todos. Now, if the animal would become pregnant after being consecrated, then he would not be able to get a kapara with the offspring. Because at the time he consecrated, he wasn't thinking about the offspring, because it still was not pregnant. And Rashi continues over here as well, Laisi behema muberes, let him bring an animal that's pregnant. Mishum hachi amar behema muberes, the reason we're suggesting here a pregnant animal, velo behema uvalda, not an animal and its offspring. Mishum dechi mafresh lo have lechad v'ikol amemar demafresh tchil mosaros. Again, we mentioned earlier this problem of designating an animal initially as a residual, but that's avoided in the case where it's a pregnant animal. V'hai lahavim moser betoda, again, over here, here part of the stipulation is that it will be residual toda. Here, we don't ask the question that is one allowed to designate lechatchila as residual. Shari miksasa have ikar carbon, because here, again, the animal is pregnant, and certainly part of the animal is the main carbon. At the time that he designated it, it was all one body. The animal was pregnant. V'achshav karav miksaso, and now he is going to offer some of it. O ha'em, o havlad, either he's going to offer the mother or the offspring. Avala'el delo havelachad, but earlier where it was just one, v'hi gufe maisi mitchila shemoser, meaning that one animal, initially the whole intention is to bring it as a residual, ikol mifrach v'chi mafrishin. So then you really do have the question of v'chi mafrishin, but here where it's a pregnant animal, that is avoided. And the Gemara continues, Amar Lei, he said to him, Rav Kahana responds to Rav Ashi, Man lei molon diyamar Rabbi Yochanan em shayra meshuyur. Who's the one that can tell us that Rabbi Yochanan said that if one left the fetus unconsecrated, that it's considered to be unconsecrated? Dilma im shayro eno meshuyur. Maybe if he leaves it unconsecrated, it is not left unconsecrated. V'hainu taimad Rabbi Yochanan, and maybe the actual reason of Rabbi Yochanan is the Amar adam eschaper b'shvach hektish, because Rabbi Yochanan in general says, we quoted this earlier, Rabbi Yochanan says that a person is allowed to use shvach hektish, which means a person is allowed to use the improvement of hektish for his kapara, for his atonement. And Rashi explains, Man le molon tam de Rabbi Yochanan hasam, who says that the reason of Rabbi Yochanan over there by the chatos, hainu mishum de uber lav yerech imahu, the reason is because the uber is not considered to be like the thigh of the mother, it's considered to be independent of the mother. Vim shayru le uber shalo hikdisho keshehikdish leim, and let's say he would have left off the uber, he wouldn't consecrate it when he consecrates the mother animal. Have mishuyir would in fact be unconsecrated, would be left off. The lo chashav kevalda wouldn't be considered like its offspring. And if you say that, the boy lememar de chavase gabe toda, if we said that, then we can make the suggestion by toda. Sheyua aim of a havlad todos, we can suggest that both the mother and the offspring, they're both todos according to the stipulation. But maybe that's not the case. Dilma svira lehasa, maybe Rabbi Yochanan holds over there. Im shayro eno meshuyir. If you try to leave off the uber, it actually wouldn't be left off. She'ein yochol l'shayro l'karvel l'fnei atzmo. You're not able to leave it off and then bring it as its own independent carbon. Ela mesa, rather, it would then be left to die. V'hachanamin, here also, ein yochol lasos havlad carbon. You can't make the offspring an independent carbon. Ve'en yochol hakrev shneim ha'em v'havlad v'lachma mimoim. You can't bring both the mother and its offspring and all of that bread together with them. Ela hainu time of Rabbi Yochanan, and rather, the reason of Rabbi Yochanan by the chatas is as follows. The Amar Rotza bevalda mischaper, he says that if one wants, he can bring the kapara with the offspring. Mishum da'ada mischaper b'shvach hektish, because shvach hektish, the improvement of hektish, which is bevlad, which is the vlad, one can use that as a kapara. Techi if risha meuberes, anytime somebody designates a pregnant animal, have it daite akol shivcha. The intention is it's going on what the improvement as well, the vlad as well. Ulachar sheneschaper be'aim posel vlad, but after he'd get the kapara with the mother, the offspring would be disqualified. Hachanami mischaper be'ezu toda sheyir. So here also, he would be able to bring a kapara from either toda that he wants, v'lachma ima, and then bring the bread with it. Avalahavi shneim v'lachma mlo, but to bring both the animal, the mother animal, and its offspring together with all of the bread, that would not be an option. We will take a look at the Rashi Ksaviyat as well. Man leimal on the time of the Rabbi Yochanan the Amar Rotza bevalda mischaper mishum desfir leim shayru levlad l'shem kachem meshuyar. Who says that the reason of Rabbi Yochanan is that the reason why he can use the offspring as the kapar by the chatas is because if he would have left off the vlad, it would be left off the yachol lahafresh lo leimo l'shem shnei karbonos, meaning that's what allows him to designate it and its mother as two separate karbonos. The timsa l'meimar nami hachim, which you could say over here also sheyafresh ha'emu vlad l'shem beis todos. You would say that the mother and the offspring could be two separate todos. Maybe that's not true. Dilma liolam im shayro eina meshuyar. Maybe you can't leave off the vlad at all. Elakeshehivrish la'aim have a vlad bal karchach kadosh im ha'aim. When somebody designates the mother, the offspring is automatically a kadosh with the mother. L'karban moser, and it's automatically a residual carbon. Ukeshayakir va'aim have a havlad moser, and then by the toda, when one offers the mother animal, so then the vlad, the offspring, is residual v'ain ton lechem, and there is no requirement of bread. Maybe there is no way to create a situation where both the mother and the offspring would require the bread. V'hai da'am Rabbi Yochanan, and that which Rabbi Yochanan said, that Rotza, he said, Rotza bevalda mischaper, that if one wants to get the kapra with the offspring, he could, to kasavar adam mischaper v'shvach hektish. That's simply because a person is able to be mischaper with shvach hektish, with the vlad, with the improvement of hektish. Uliolam im karav echad mehem hava yidach moser, but really, if one of them is brought, the the other one is moser, it's just residual, it's not going to rise above the level of residual. And the Gemara continues with an eighth and final suggestion. Ravina ikla ledamhurya. Ravina visited Damhurya. Amrle Ravdimi bereder Rav Huna mi Damhurya leRavina. And Ravdimi, the son of Rav Huna of Damhurya, he said to Ravina, Velaisi behema velema. Why doesn't he just bring an animal and he should stipulate as follows? Hare olai. He should say it's upon me, meaning to say it's upon me to bring a toda, and he should designate an animal as that toda to fulfill his vow. And then Velaisi behema achrisi. And then he should go ahead and he should bring another animal. And then bring 80 loaves together with it. And then he could say as follows: if the surviving animal is a tmura, so hani tarti todos, so these two animals are todos, and then these 80 loaves belong to both of them. And if the one that survived is a toda, so the one that I said olai is upon me, that is also a toda, and then the 80 belong to both of them, and then and then that third animal, it could just be achrayas, it could be a guarantee, because you have a situation of olai over here. By olai, one is allowed to designate one as a guarantee, and the halacha is that the guarantee does not require bread, so now he offers all three todos with 80 breads, and he'll fulfill his requirement. And the Gemara continues, Amar Le, he said to Rav Dimi, HaTorah Amra, the Torah says, Tov asher lo tidor mishetidor velo tashalim. It says, better not to take a vow than to make a vow and not pay. Viat amrit leikum velinder betchila. But you're suggesting that the person should stand up and vow initially to bring a toda. Therefore, that is not a good suggestion. And so in conclusion, if a toda became mixed with its tamura and one of them died, there really is no acceptable method for offering the surviving animal. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ha'omer harei olai toda. If somebody says it's upon me to bring a toda, yavi hi v'lachma min hachulin, he should bring the toda and its bread from chulin. And Rashi explains, Ha'omer harei olai toda, yavi hi v'lachma min hachulin. If somebody says it's upon me to bring a toda, he brings it and its bread from chulin. To kevan damar olai, since he said it's upon me, it's incumbent upon me, nischayeba, he's liable. V'havalei davar shebechov, it becomes an obligation. V'yeino ba ela min hachulin, the rule is that one can only use chulin funds for that, kedamrinan lekamon, like we say later on. V'kevan damar harei olai toda, since he said it's incumbent upon me to bring a toda, afagav delo amar v'lachma, even though he didn't say v'lachma and its bread, mischayev b'shtein, he's chayev in both of them, the lechem glal toda, because the bread comes on account of the toda, it's ancillary to the toda, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Aleph Amid Beis.